Hello and welcome back to the Pitchside Podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the BSB. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of this podcast, and of course subscribe to the YouTube channel, enable notifications to receive all the updates from these episodes and all the content on the channel, including of course the podcast, which you can listen to on Spotify, Google Podcast, or any other platform. And follow us on social media. I'm at BSB on Twitter, Pitchside Pod on Instagram. Tell a friend, share it, spread the word. Make us reach the 1K pretty quickly. Let's do that before the Euros. And of course, you're welcome, and welcome to episode 109 of the podcast. We're going to be tackling what happened in the Euro qualifiers for the World Cup yesterday in detail. Of course, we're talking about the World Cup qualifiers in Europe, and it was an interesting night yesterday indeed. It was a pretty interesting day, I think, overall. In the European qualifiers, and we kick things off from the Serbian capital in Belgrade, as Serbia held Portugal to a draw, or should I say, Portugal lost 2 points away from home, which they could have had easily, I think, particularly in the first half. It was definitely an interesting situation for Portugal. Diogo Jota was introduced as a starter in this one, different to the first game, where João Felix was a starter for Portugal, and it was an interesting situation for Portugal. They found themselves leading the game 2-0 in the first half. They were the better side, to be fair, in that first half in particular. Inside 36 minutes, they found themselves leading 2-0, and they thought they're comfortable. They thought they're comfortable with their lead. They were playing really, really well, but in the second half, Serbia turned things around, I think, pretty quickly, with the first quarter of an hour, the second half being pretty important for them. Aleksandar Mitrovic scoring the opening or the consolation goal to half the deficit inside 1 minute of the second half, and then of course by quarter of an hour it was Filip Kostic on the second goal for Serbia, making it 2-2. But overall, it wasn't the biggest point of the game, really. The biggest controversy, I think, the biggest point of the game was the fact that Cristiano Ronaldo had a clear goal chalked off by the referees. Not chalked off exactly, but didn't even count, really. The ball was clearly in the back of the net. The goal line technology is non-existent, of course, in the qualifiers, as well as VAR, so there's no real chance for that being ruled. Cristiano Ronaldo was arguably upset about that. Serbia had a red card just before that, and, it was all, I think, at the late stages of the game, it was all indicating that Portugal are going to be scoring a goal somehow. They did, to be fair, technically they did, but the referee didn't count it, the assistant didn't see it, it was in plain sight, it was clear that the ball was into the net, and definitely, I'm not exactly with dissent and with protest, but I think it was very, very, very understandable that Cristiano Ronaldo got really, furious about it, and understandably so, he got frustrated. But I don't think that this particular incident could justify the fact that Portugal should win. I'm not going to say that Portugal are deserved of winning this one, because in the second half in particular, they didn't put the best of performances. Serbia were the better side, arguably, in the second half. They were really intense. I think they conserved their energy in the first half. They didn't play a lot of intensity, but in the second half, they put it all on the line, I think. They made all the substitutions that they need. They got in Luka Jovic in. They got in Filip Djuricic in. It was an incredible situation, really, for the Serb. They could have got a couple of chances to be victorious, but definitely the late stage of the game saw Portugal getting a little bit more pressure and chances, and that goal that wasn't indeed counting as a goal. Again, the ball clearly passed the line, clearly went over, and the referee, I think the assistant referees, somehow were blind to it, oblivious to the fact that the ball crossed the line, and they could have, counted it somehow, but anyway. But again, I'm really holding into my opinion the fact that this incident of the goal and all of that, even if the goal was scored, I don't really want to say that Portugal were deserved winners, because Serbia had a great second half. They really shut Portugal down brilliantly in the second half, and they had most of the possession and most of the domination in the second half, and scored 2 goals for it, and could have scored a couple of more as well. So it's an interesting situation for Portugal. And again, for the second time, just like I said the other time, after their loss, or after their hard victory, should I say, against Azerbaijan 1-0, believe it or not, by an own goal nonetheless, I would say I'm not afraid for Portugal qualifying to the World Cup exactly, as much as I'm worried for them that they might lose points along the way, that may make this journey a little bit uncomfortable. This kind of 2 points that they lose against Serbia, I'm not saying that, again, I'm not saying that they deserve to win or they were the better side, but definitely there will be sort of some regrets about how this game should have gone for them and how this game should have been treated and how this game should have been taken from them. I think it's absolutely interesting to see how Portugal are going to be progressing in this one, particularly that's still a third game to play for Portugal. In this one, they're going to be away to Luxembourg, and boy knows how tricky could that be now after Luxembourg pulled a shocking victory against Ireland 1-0 away from home in a game that Ireland completely dominated and should have won, to be fair, but missing chances and not being clinical allowed Luxembourg the opportunity to register a historic World Cup victory, a World Cup qualifiers victory for Luxembourg. Gerson Rodriguez making it 1-0 for Luxembourg, defeating Ireland away from home. That is a big win for Luxembourg, and I'm not saying that this win is going to make them qualify, but I think it's a big win because they don't get those a lot in the World Cup qualifiers. Just that, really. Definitely Qatar is going to be playing Azerbaijan in international friendlies in that group, and they played that game, and Qatar defeated Azerbaijan 2-1, so if that was to be counting in the qualifiers, Qatar would have 6 points because they beat Luxembourg in the first one and they beat Azerbaijan in the second one, but thankfully it doesn't count for them, or they will be top of the group, more or less anyway. So it's an important victory for Luxembourg, who are going to be again hosting Portugal in the next one, and it would definitely be an interesting situation for Portugal when they go away to them. Could they slip again? Could it be really? Could they, have another problem with another sort of average side in this group, and Portugal could slip more points, which again would make their journey really uncomfortable in those qualifiers. At the moment, as it stands, Portugal with 4 points alongside Serbia, and Serbia having the advantage really with the away goals. Luxembourg 3 points behind them. Azerbaijan and Ireland, of course, 0 points. With Qatar, as I mentioned, playing the friendly against Azerbaijan. Not only the European champions that were struggling yesterday to get a result out of their match in the qualifiers, it was also one of the favourites to win said Euros in Belgium that struggled to win against Czech Republic in Group E, and in fact, it wasn't exactly struggling to win as much as it was saving a point really against Czech Republic, considering the overall momentum of the game and how the game really went for the most part. I mean, the first half was pretty average, pretty balanced, I would say, from Belgium. They didn't they made a couple of changes for the first lineup they played with. Of course, Timothy Castagne was introduced for Thomas Meunier. Nasser Chadli played as a left wing back, which obviously didn't work because it didn't help whatsoever. Dries Mertens went down injured, so I think this might be a worry for Belgium for the next game. They need someone like him really up front, but I mean, they have the options, so they won't exactly worry about that. And of course, the start of Jason Denayo in the back instead of Vermeulen in the first game. They kept the same lineup, but again, this time it was against a much stern opponent than Wales in the first game. Czech Republic were pretty intense. They were much ready physically. They were really getting in on the duels, on the aerial duels. They were trying to win those situations in the air, pressing, sometimes high, squeezing low, not playing low enough to allow space for Belgium to have the ball on, and not playing high enough to expose themselves for the runs of Lukaku, for the runs of Dries Mertens, for the runs of De Bruyne and Castagne behind them. Belgium were pretty lopsided in their game, really. You can see that De Bruyne was falling on the right-hand side even more. He wasn't exactly roaming around in the first half, at least. Romelu Lukaku didn't have a lot of opportunities to run on the ball. He only had one proper situation to have the ball on his feet, on his favoured left foot. Belgium overall didn't have the best of the first halves, and it looked clearly, like Czech Republic, were the better side. They had them locked in the first half. They had a couple of opportunities themselves. Kremenchik hitting the post late on in the first half. Courtois was pulled a save against Jakub Jankto, and they had the couple of most dangerous opportunities really in the game. Dendonka on the other side had an opportunity saved by Tomas Vaslik. The second half started explosively strong from the Czech Republic side, scoring a goal by Lucas Provod in the 50th minute. Beautiful strike, by the way, a venomous one, going right in the bottom corner of Thibaut Courtois, with unable to save that one. And after that, of course, Dries Mertens, as I mentioned, went down injured. Leandro Trossard was introduced, and I think this was a good substitution because at least gave a little bit of support in that left-hand side for for Vertonghen defensively to return, and also the substitution of Nacer Chadli for Thomas Fouquet, and it moved Timothy Castagna to the left-hand side, which allowed him, Castagna really to support and made a little bit of a balance between the wings in that game. Romelu Lukaku in the 60th minute, in the first proper really chance where De Bruyne got the ball, got enough time and space to pick one of his brilliant passes. He did. Lukaku twists and turns inside Sulecka and puts a left foot shot into the back of the net. Thomas Vaslik could have done better. It went through his legs, but, the shot was, I think, venomous enough to get past him. 1-1 for Belgium. And what happened afterwards was pretty, push and pull here and there. Belgium had a couple of opportunities, and Czech Republic had a couple of dangerous opportunities. They hit the crossbar, they hit the post again. Courtois was forced to pull a couple of other saves, and they were really under some serious pressure by the end of the game and almost lost the full 3 points in this game. Definitely that goal from Lukaku was very, very important because they certainly could have lost the game. They certainly could have really dropped 3 points there, but in the end they ended up dropping 2, and it was, with not exactly the best performances. Again, so many defensive mistakes in the back. Nacer Chadli wasn't exactly supporting the defense. Vertonghen was pretty breached on the left-hand side. He was not exactly supported. He was, he was dribbled past a lot more in this game than any other player, I think, from Belgium was. Denayer made a couple of mistakes. It wasn't exactly comfortable defending for Belgium sometimes. It feels like the defenders of Belgium could not exactly defend, in sort of a compact way, in a sort of intense way. They seem like they want to defend this space, and that when it goes wrong, it really goes wrong for them. And the goal, I think, was a big indication, a big sort of evidence of how things could go wrong when you try to defend a space and you end up defending the wrong space, letting enough room to for a player to shoot, and it wasn't the back of the net. The good thing about this for Belgium is that they saved the 2 points, really, because the performance was bank average. Czech Republic, again, were more intense, physically more ready. They could conserve their energy. They could distribute their effort on the full game. They really, they had a period in the second half where everybody thought, well, yeah, almost they are exhausted, spent. But in the last 15 minutes, with a couple of substitutions here and there, Matej Vidra being introduced, Thomas Peckard and David Pavelka, and it was absolutely hell on leather for Belgium for the last 10 minutes, really. A couple of corners, a couple of opportunities, and hitting the crossbar, as I mentioned, in those late minutes. It could have gone either way. Czech Republic could have scored a couple of other goals, really, from their chances, and could have gone through with that game. But again, for Belgium, it is all about getting the point. They share the points with Czech Republic. They will accept it for now, and they will try and look out for the next game that Belgium is going to be playing, which will be against Belarus. They host Belarus as Czech Republic go away and host Wales in the game that probably will define, how the second place maybe will be shaped, unless Czech Republic might pull serious results in the next round of this fixture. In other game of this group, Belarus defeated Estonia 4-2, of course, meaning that the standing of the group is like this: Czech Republic with 4 points, Belgium with 4 points, Belarus with 3 points, Wales and Estonia with 0 points in Group E. In Group J, of course, and this is, I think, one of the most interesting groups of the campaign. 3 games were played, of course. Montenegro defeated Gibraltar 4-1, but obviously this is not the focus of the segment, really. We're going to be focusing on the other 2 games in this group for different reasons, and we start in Norway as Norway get beaten 3-0 by Turkey. It was a brilliant performance from the Turks. I think pretty conservative, I would say. They didn't have more possession than the Norwegian side, of course. They didn't have the control of the game, but definitely it was a great performance. I think it was similar to the one against England, really pretty effective from the Turk. 3 shots on target, 3 goals. It was effectiveness and efficiency to its absolute best from the Turk. Again, against a side like Norway, where the average age is 25 years old, compared to 25.5 years old with the side of Turkey with an average age of 26.4. You can understand really that the generation in Norway is pretty younger. You can see the likes of Soloth and Haaland and Ødegaard and Eunice and all of that. All of these players that are nurtured in systems that are still trying to develop them at the moment. You could see that they played well because I think they have a lot of talent in them, but obviously the fact that Turkey had more experience, more wise players, I think, not probably the biggest of players, not the biggest of names, maybe you think about it, probably aside from Çalhanoğlu, Saglar Soyuncu and Ozan Kabak. I don't think in particular that you could say that they were playing exactly with the biggest superstars in the world. So even Ozan Kabak was on the bench for this one. So it's not exactly a star-studded lineup for Turkey. Even the secondary name that they have, the likes of Cenk Tosun or Enes Unal, they basically went into obscurity, and it's not exactly the most star-studded of lineups, as I mentioned. So Turkey overall were pretty conservative, pretty economic, pretty efficient in their victory. 3-0 from 3 shots. And they picked their moments expertly, I would say. Norway had a lot of attempts, but not opportunities. They didn't have a lot of real chances. They only had 1 shot on target for the whole game, so that's not exactly the greatest of performances. But definitely, you have to back Norway for maybe putting on a good run. But we don't know really if they're going to be up to the task in this group. Nobody can guarantee that, to be fair, if they're going to be able to do it or not. It's really unknown at the moment with this young squad. I don't really fancy them going to the World Cup. I don't really fancy them going to the playoffs either. I think it's going to be between Turkey and Netherlands, but for some reason, I'm really hopeful that they could achieve something, at least in this game. The second 3 points for Turkey, 6 points out of 6 now, and not just that, with the most efficient of ways. From 7 shots on target in both games, they had 6 goals, or had 7 goals. It was quite incredible statistic, I think, for Turkey. They're pretty effective. The 4-4-2 they're playing is really solid and very, very compact, and it will put problems, again, I think, to any team. And obviously it did for Netherlands, and it did again for Norway, and it was an incredible victory for Hakan Çalhanoğlu's mates. Switching gears, but not switching lanes in this qualifiers. Of course, we're still in this Group G as we still with the other game, or the other axis of this group, which was Netherlands versus Latvia, and this was a one-sided game all day long. 2-0 victory for Netherlands. Pretty underwhelming victory. You expected Netherlands to have a little bit more saying in this one. You expected them to score maybe 4, 5 goals, 6 goals past Latvia. Like, this is an opponent that is really going to be the basket of the group if you look at it from a different perspective. They had 36 shots on the whole game, 11 from them on target, and they only scored twice. And it was, and they scored once in the first half, an early goal, and they stayed until the 70th minute to score the second goal, which was pretty concerning against Latvia. Even against a side like Latvia, it will be always concerning when you have a 1-0 lead and you don't kill the game pretty quickly afterwards, because you don't know what could happen in the next minutes or the next half or the next, half an hour or whatever period of the game is. So realistically speaking, Netherlands got, again, for the standards and for the game itself, it was a pretty economic victory, but I think it was well denied, I think, by the Latvian goalkeeper, who pulled a lot of saves in this one. Robertus Ozols, he pulled 8 saves in this one, denying Netherlands the opportunity to score other goals. Again, the important thing is for Netherlands that they will take this victory after a first performance that was pretty, frustrating, disappointing, underwhelming. Could put all the bad adjectives to that, and it was a pretty, again, underwhelming game against Turkey. This one, not exactly an upgrade because they should have gone comfortably and won 6-0 or 5-0, but definitely they will take victories when it matters. They will take victories when it comes, Netherlands, because they will not exactly care. And under Frank De Boer, really in particular, I think it would be only about results. I mean, once upon a time, people were really watching Netherlands to watch performances and to watch a team that play and dazzles and, put some magic. And certainly I was one of those. But I think under Frank De Boer now, and how incompetent he could be, and how incompetent he showed us to be in the games where he took over the side from Ronald Koeman, I think it's easy to say that, the expectation for Netherlands is just either qualify to the World Cup, or at the very worst, you qualify to the playoff system, and from there, Netherlands could see what they're going to be doing next, because overall, it's not very convincing from Netherlands. But again, they will take the 3 points when it matters. So the standing of the group is like this: Turkey with 6 points, Montenegro 6 points, Netherlands 3, as well as Norway, Latvia, and Gibraltar with 0 points. And the next round is going to be very, very interesting, because Netherlands are going to be hosting, Netherlands going to be going to Gibraltar, so you expect that it's going to be another, 3 points for them to get in the bag and get some momentum going after the rough start against Turkey in the first game. As for Norway, they're going to be facing Montenegro away, and Turkey, of course, they're going to be playing, they're going to play in Latvia at home, and you expect the three of those sides to have easy games. I mean, probably aside from Norway, really, going away to Montenegro, it's going to be a very tough task to get through, but I think for Turkey and Netherlands, there should be 3 points in the bag, and it would definitely be interesting to see how the group is going to be shaped up. I mean, my opinion, between parentheses, I would say watch out for Montenegro, because they're really, really an interesting side. Maybe the first couple of games that they have against Gibraltar and Latvia were not exactly biggest of evidences that they're good, but maybe we'll see how they're going against a side like Norway with the stars and the talent that Norway would have. It's interesting to see how this group shapes out. It's one of the most interesting groups, I would say, overall in the competition. Elsewhere in the qualifiers, of course, we're left only Group H. It was 3 games played in that group. Russia defeated Slovenia 2-1. Croatia defeated Cyprus hardly 1-0. It was a rough victory for the Croatian side, although just like Netherlands, they dominated the game. They had a lot of opportunities. They could have scored more, but they were only allowed once by the Cyprus side. Mario Pasalic in the 40th minute with the goal, given the points for Croatia, the first 3 points for them in this group, of course, after losing the first match 1-0 against Slovenia. Speaking of Slovenia, who lost against Russia again earlier, and then Slovakia pulled a draw out of the jaws of death against Malta. It was a surprising result. This was surprising, and the craziest thing is that Malta went ahead 2-0 in the first half, and not just that, in quick succession and with some brilliant goals. I really advise you to watch those goals by Luke Gambin and Alexander Stariano. Brilliant goals for Malta, and if they go out of the World Cup, and obviously they will not make it, I would really have those 2 goals in my memory, really, as some of the most beautiful things I saw in the game. Of course, a 2-2 draw between Slovakia and Malta. Slovakia equalising in the second half. David Strelek with the first goal, and Milan Skriniar, the Inter Milan stalwart, of course, with the second goal coming in for the goods for Slovakia and helping them onto a second draw of the campaign of the first one against Cyprus. In this group, of course, the next game is going to be, or the next round is going to be, for Slovakia, it's going to be against Russia at home, and then, of course, you're going to have, for Malta, it will be against Croatia away from home, of course, as for Croatia, of course, again, as I mentioned, they will have to face Malta at home. Cyprus, they're going to be facing Slovenia at home in the next round of this group. That's it from me for this episode. I was your boy, the HD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of this podcast, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Enable notifications to receive all the updates from these current episodes and all the content on the channel. Listen to us on Spotify, Google Podcast, or any other platform. Follow us on social media on South PSP on Twitter, Pitch Setworld on Instagram, and of course we're still covering the qualifiers on this podcast until the return of domestic football. Stay with us, follow us on social media again, and of course until the next time, I will see you soon. Goodbye.